Hello, wild ones. This is Dark Moon Chiron, the little corner of the universe where together we illuminate the secrets of your dreams, your subconscious, and your forgotten self. This is a storytelling dream interpretation podcast, and I'm your guide, Megan Rose McMullen, the Wild Dream Sorceress. This podcast is structured in 3 parts. Beginning the dream journey, I share the story of a sleeper's adventure. Whether the dream is my own or one that was submitted, I speak in first person for anonymity because let's face it, sometimes our dreams can be quite wild. Once we follow the dreamer's quest entirely, we decipher each piece of the labyrinth, unlocking new levels of consciousness along the way. Then the enchanted tale ends with an intuitive reading on the inner workings of the hero's psyche, hopefully leaving you, the listeners, with a new understanding of the innate magic and power that lies inside the hidden world within each of us. Allow the story to transform your ordinary waking lives into your wildest dreams. Or at the very least, strap in and enjoy this imaginary ride. Are you ready to get wild? Part 1. Where are you, Fletcher? I find myself standing in the center of a dimly lit dance studio. The sandy brown wood floors look gray because nobody bothered to turn on the lights. There's a slight glow coming from the open door behind me. The room is filled with a solemn energy. The air is heavy with seriousness. And although I'm surrounded by people, no one is talking. I know intuitively this is a drill for teaching us survival for a very specific situation. It definitely isn't our first time practicing it. White masking tape divides the studio like 2 starting lines. We are instructed by the military sergeant to organize ourselves into 4 lines, 2 rows facing each other as if we're about to start a relay race. But this isn't a game. No one is having fun. There is a snack table of water and protein bars for when you complete your portion of exercise. Each team's goal is to run to the other side, tagging the next person to release them by handing off their weapon. Everyone is equipped with an object that is supposed to be their defense, as well as aiding their team in winning. Winning equals life. I gaze around at the different makeshift weapons. They range from utensils haphazardly stuck together with duct tape, gardening tools, to plastic toys. A set of triplets armed with heavy-duty Nerf guns clamber to their places, pushing to be first and on the same team. They look like the result of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Gaston from Beauty and the Beast procreating, I think to myself. They have huge chests, little heads, and skinny legs. I inwardly laugh at the ridiculousness. I look down at my hands to inspect my weapon. It's a dead man's finger. Inadequacy ripples through me. I cannot focus because I am starving. I feel weak and lightheaded. I remember suddenly why I hadn't eaten. It's because I had a choice. Either I ate or my child did. So I skipped some meals, refusing to use the food stamps on myself. The woman officer resembling Viola Davis stands off in the shadows, holding a clipboard, tapping her pen to track our times. She is all business and quite intimidating. The relay race begins, and before I can blink, the triplets complete their runs. They crush it. My team is still going long after they've finished. The way they celebrate at the snack table without making any noise floods my memory with the vague notion of a joke I know. As I make my pass from one tape line to the next, I can't focus because I'm trying so hard to remember the joke. What was it, I think? There were 3 whales, or was it alligators? No. Were they donkeys? No. T-Rex? Something about how long it takes them with their little arms and big heads to cross the road. I can't help it. I almost laugh, but instead I smile to myself, knowing that this is not the time or the place for jokes. This is not a game. Once the race is over, we line up on our way out of the dark room. Each person must sanitize their weapon before we leave. Sergeant checks off each person's as they put their object into the sanitation bowl. Last in line, I walk up and drop my dead man's finger in the cauldron of blue water. She eyes me questioningly. I instantly realize that my weapon was representative of tricks and spells. I was supposed to be a witch. Had I been more prepared, I could have beat the triplets if only I had remembered sooner. I asked the officer, how long did it take them to complete the race? I already knew the answer before I asked, but I did anyway. 6 seconds each. Then embarrassment rises to my face as I eye the snack table. The officer smiles and nods to me knowingly as I ask to take some of the protein bars home. As I pass her, she tucks another one in the left front pocket of my black sports jacket. I expect pity when I look at her, but I only see kindness and empathy cover her face. As I exit the room, I end up in a dingy, yellow-lighted convenience store with the essence of a Goodwill. All the products, food, hygiene, toiletries, and such are extremely discounted or expired. I realize I'm looking for somebody. Panic starts to rise in my chest, and I start running through the aisles. Where is my daughter? Was it her that was missing? I can't remember. I crane my neck over the metal racks, trying to focus my fuzzy brain on who I was looking for in the first place. Then it hits me, like the hunger pains that strike right then, reminding me that 1, it's been too long since I've eaten, and 2, the person I'm looking for is Fletcher. It's Fletcher, my friend and childhood crush, though he doesn't know it. I never told him. I'm worried about him. Where did he go? The fluorescent lights buzz overhead, and I start to feel overwhelmed. A familiar sensation washes over me. My vision tunnels, and in slow motion, I start to pass out. I see each level of the shelves, and the orange sales tags on the items blur past my face as I make my way to the dirty white tiles of the floor. Before I know it, a man, probably the owner, is tugging on my puffy gray winter coat, trying to get me off the floor. I stagger to my feet and reach into the pocket for my protein bar my sergeant stuck there earlier. Removing the mumble-like wrapper, it feels longer than most protein bars. The size feels awkward in my hand. I'm being ushered out of the store like I'm a servant to the other shoppers. But rather than be embarrassed, I focus on eating, hoping that it will help. Leaving the store, I glance up for my snack. I'm in the neighborhood without any streetlights. I stare at a picture-perfect white colonial house with black shutters and flower boxes around the windows. I know this is my friend, Diamond's house. I can see through the walls. She is sitting on a bar stool with a black backdrop and a bright spotlight like she's posing for a picture. I continue to stand outside knowing now I'm a vampire and cannot enter until she asks me. I understand my deep hunger then and why it wasn't made better by a protein bar. I shout through the window that I should take a picture of her because she looks so gorgeous, and the lighting is perfect. She flicks back her long locks of chestnut hair, and in slow motion, it floats and frames her face like she's completely submerged in water. Everything is just right. I hadn't realized there was a reality-bending silence shrouding this action until her coy giggle breaks the spell. Why are you still out there? Come in, she ushers me with a wave of her hand. I float through towards her through the window as if the outside wall of the house just disappears. Standing behind the bar, facing her bar stool in the center of the room, I can't help but admire her perfectness and the perfectness of the lighting. I tell her to give me her phone. As if I've been a professional photographer for my whole life, I adjusted the camera that was about to take a picture, but she moves, and the glitz fades a little. Frustrated, I tell her to stop moving. I pick up a glass piece shaped like a cast iron pan. I use it as a magnifying glass to capture the specific look of the jaw-dropping beauty I just saw moments before as I gazed from inside the window. I snap the photo, and my finger accidentally swipes right. The camera app shifts to the photo gallery, and the photo I see shocks me. The caption surrounding a picture of my longtime crush reads, "Fletcher, in case missing." Without a filter, my first thought escapes my mouth as I accuse her of being a murderer. "Oh my God, did you kill him?" "No," Diamond says as she reaches out her arm, gesturing for her phone. She continues, "No, he was part of this true crime group that pretends to solve murder mysteries, and now he's missing. I couldn't find him or get a hold of him. He made this photo as a prank, but I kept it just in case he ended up missing." She abruptly stands, running to grab something to show me, to prove to me, but it was too late. I woke up. Let's talk about my workbook. You can find it on Amazon. It's in the show notes. It's called Dream Work, the Dreamer's Workbook for expanding into the highest expression of who you really are. Not only do you get how I interpret the dream interpretation guide about how I do it, you get practices, rituals for dreaming better, more vividly, with intention. You get 30 days of journal pages and the breakdown sheets. That's not all. You get 3 practices of dreams that come with a breakdown sheet, and you get to practice it, what you just learned. There's 3 examples. Not it. I got a bunch of shadow work prompts that you can use with your dreams. And if you're curious about how I would have dissected or analyzed the dreams from the practices, I even left versions of them in there. And even better, it's a picture book. There are beautiful pictures in this generated. Such a divine creation. I just love it. And honestly, it's just such a good book. I've had so many people talk about how wonderful it is and easy to read. Super awesome guide. It's available on Amazon in the show notes, in the description. And I really put my heart and soul into it. It's the first time I've ever written a book, and I am just so grateful to be able to teach you all how I do dream interpretations that has transformed my life and expedited my personal development like no other. And so I highly recommend it. There is hard, soft, and Kindle versions. So hope you like it. So part 2. All right, so let's see. Let's break out some parts of it. 1, we start off in the dance studio. It's dark. There's not very much light except for behind, right? Which, shadow unconscious is very solemn, very serious, right? There's a lot of quietness because you said I'm surrounded by people and no one is talking. This is a drill. This isn't a game that comes up multiple times. You have the dividing lines that divides the studio. There's a military sergeant. Again, it referenced a race. And then it's not a game. No one's having fun. Then there's water and protein, and I think the protein is coming in later with the hunger, but everyone is equipped with weapons, makeshift things. So this is like a drill. It almost feels post-apocalyptic because, like, again, we're like it feels like the kids, they're younger, but not young enough where she doesn't have kids. She has a kid. So again, she's like very serious, but like at the same, you have these like really ridiculous toys and gardening tools, plastic stuff, Nerf guns. And then she makes a reference. This makes a reference. The dreamer makes a reference to Arnold Schwarzenegger and Gaston kind of laughing about it, right? But like it's not funny. And then she finds a dead man's fingers, which is like, we found a letter that's kind of indicative of a witch, which makes sense, right? And then we finally get the notion of the hunger, starving. And then there's food stamps and a child that's mentioned, which is kind of interesting because the child's literally mentioned, but like we're at a dance studio. You're not supposed to joke around. It feels like it feels like that it's referencing a child specifically, for like to make a point, right? And then the food stamps are mentioned. Food stamps are usually when you're getting assistance and you can't do it. I like that, like this says that there's inadequacy and there's like feeling weak and lightheaded. There's like a fogginess, we don't actually get the specific situation that it might be Then like there's like these coming to awareness of like, oh, I suddenly remember why I haven't eaten. I forgot that the medman's finger was like indicative of spells and tricks and spells, right? Excuse me. Then you have the officer, that's a woman. The dreamer is also a female woman, whatever, however you would like to say it. She's a woman officer. The dreamer is a woman as well. Um, there's then she references triplets, like there's a three, super archetypal three. The triplets, they crush it. Interesting that they use the word crush, right? Because Fletcher, we end up finding out that Fletcher is a crush as well. Um, they are hanging out the stack, and then there's like they're not making any noise, right? So no one's talking. This like not making any noise is kind of interesting. They're not, when they're at the triplets finished, they are at the table not making any noise, and she's just seeing the motions that they go through, and it reminds them of a joke. Again, this is a very serious thing, and there's the joking, right? Thinking of the joke, can't remember. The fogginess in the remembering is like really interesting that's playing out. Again, this is serious. It's not joking. Yeah, I'm trying to remember a joke. Um, Again, we're leaving as we're about to leave the dance studio. We're dipping. I drop the dead man's finger into a cauldron of blue water, right? And then that's the reminder, remembering that, oh shoot, I could have like won the race. And then how long did it take them to complete the race? 6 seconds. 6 seconds is an interesting number that would be picked. There's three of them. So three, it's so then we're back to thinking about the snacks, feeling embarrassed about the snacks. Even though the woman is very intimidating and very all business, she has this kindness and empathy over her face. She sticks an extra one in the pocket. Like it's just like they're connecting, really, like they're connecting, which is really nice because one, we're dealing with the shadow. The dreamer is a woman, and so the officer is a woman. So we got the two shadows, which is the personal shadow there, instead of the collective. But when referencing the competition, that's the dreamer is a like woman, and the triplets are male, which is opposite. And she referenced two like really macho men, you know what I mean? Like Gaston is like a classic toxic masculinity, and then we have Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's like literally like you know very like a manly man, the stereotypical status quo of man. So that's the opposite. We got the collective in the male version, and then we have the personal with the female officer. But both of this, like, there's authority there, the authority, because she's a military sergeant commanding them or whatever. So that's kind of like what I took out of the first ones. You have participant in all of them except for in the last scene. You have observer. It's shadow, like very little light, really indicative of the shadow. Got a lot of joking, got a lot of, but supposed to be very serious. No talking, silence, right? So let's move on to the next section. So as I leave the shadow, I come into this like dingy yellow convenience store. The fluorescent lights overhead are making noise, that like there's like the buzzing. This is like really where there's a lot of like emphasis on like being overwhelmed by like the noise. Also like you have like kind of like the dingy floor, tiles, you have like the expired food. And this kind of interesting because before in the previous scene, you got the food stamps, which is like, suggests that like maybe there isn't a lot of money for food. And especially when she says, I had to choose between me having food or my child. And so I had to skip some meals. And so she comes out into this convenience store, right? And then all of the products are like discounted. But this is when she starts to remember, like panic because she can't remember, right? Who is it? Who is it? And then the emotional hunger, the hunger pains, the physical pain strikes, creates a memory. And she passes out after she remembers, after becoming so overwhelmed, tunnel vision. The man, so again, the dreamer is female. So the male owner of the store is like trying to usher out, like she's a disturbance, but she's too focused on like eating because she's whatever, but like trying to get this person out of the store. That's kind of interesting. I think it's interesting that there's like the color blue is in the first one, and then the orange sales tags is in the other one. So blue is the throat chakra, which is like speaking. And then orange is the sacral, which is like creating, the creative chakra. And then and then again, we're focusing on the protein. There's like a lot of protein, which is interesting that protein came up too, and Arnold Schwarzenegger and Gaston, because what does he do in the movie? He does like the drinking of the eggs, and like that's just like protein. Get your protein is kind of stereotypical bodybuilder, weightlifting, muscly person, making sure to get enough protein. I think it's interesting that the removing the mumbo like wrapper, so it's like it kind of is like candy, you know what I mean? Which I think is referencing the fact like candy doesn't really satiate people, it doesn't really give you much. And we find out later that the dreamer is a vampire looking in. So it would kind of foreshadowing the next part. So then let's see if I wrote any other ones down. Yeah. Lots of protein mentions. Oh, what I didn't mention, I wrote down here the black jacket. Then the first one is a black jacket, and then the gray puffy hoodie, the coat, and the gray floor. So like there's like a little bit of a grayness to it, like somber energy, gray, dreary, no fun kind of feeling to it. Yeah, so then we go out into more shadow. So we go shadow to lighter to shadow and bright, and like the bright in the middle. And so we're out and we're looking at this white colonial that's in darkness because there's no street lights, black shutters, black, I'm assuming black flower boxes around the windows. And we go into this like black backdrop, but there's a spotlight on the friend. That's important. Like she stands out, right? It stands out. Excuse me. And then she remembers that she's a vampire. The hunger never made better by the protein bar. And I just got like an intuitive hit. We can't wait for part 3. But anyway, yeah. So then to like make, like to engage. So I'm observing this house in the perfect lighting, waiting for it, starting to remember some stuff, remembering that I'm a vampire. Kind of like it also, again, we got the reality bending silence that like shrouds the whole thing and it breaks a spell, right? Like that's another play on spell. That's 2 times that spell is in there. Diamond, the friend, ushers them in. They float into the window, like they're being pulled along. She's behind the bar stool or the bar, taking a picture, facing the center of the room. Everything is perfect. There's like picture perfect house, picture perfect gorgeousness, picture perfect. Like there's like this like play on picture perfectness. The lighting is perfect. And then again, referencing, she's about to take the picture and then she moves and the glitz, this like glamour kind of falls from it, right? Like it's like if like glitz fades a little, right? That's the part of it. And there's frustration, like when that kind of spell ends, it's frustration. And then we have a magnifying glass trying to capture, that's in like, I think it's interesting that you grab a cast iron pan that's made out of glass to magnify this picture perfectness to get it back to the jaw-dropping beauty that was seen before. Snaps a picture, somehow accidentally comes up to the missing picture of Fletcher, the accusation of did you kill him, which is interesting because she was spotlighted before. No, but he's part of like a murder mystery club, murder mystery. And I think that is a cue and a clue too, because one, we don't know anything about Fletcher. He's missing, so we don't know anything about him, but we just find out that he's part of a true crime group and he's missing now and he solves murder mysteries. And so to me, there's a sense of like not remembering and coming to find clues, like, right? So like I'm hungry and then you find out like why I'm starving. And then we find out a little bit more about the dead man's finger, and we find a little bit more every time we get like a little bit more information and then we get to find that the person that's missing, thing that's missing is like Fletcher solves murder mysteries. And so the photo is a prank, but it was kept just in case. And then Diamond gets up to prove something, like prove that it wasn't, like prove to her like that wasn't true. And then the dreamer wakes up. I'm just gonna look over this too, just in case. Yeah, there's just like this really common thing of like lightheadedness, fuzzy, fog, gray, not remembering, poor memory. And then there's the solemn, serious survival. I like the phrase, this is a drill. This is a drill. Then you got two starting lines. There's a lot of like childishness of like finding humor in these like really serious, somber, and like kids do that all the time. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of like, this isn't the place for laughing or like laughter, and kids will play wherever. There's like a lot of that. I think it's interesting that spell came up a couple times. It's a race. Oh, the word crush came up a couple times. The silence was like a really big theme. Breaking the spell, breaking the glitz, kind of the glamour kind of fade. Glamour meaning like spell as well. Picture perfectness, that's like the thing. Lots of like perfectness. And get this, 6 is about protection, love, completion, destiny, oneness, wealth. I think that's kind of interesting. We got the bar stools, the spotlight. I think we got everything. I think missing poster. I think that's all. What did you find? Did you think of anything? Like, did you see anything, like any themes going on? So, I wanted to tell too, like a little bit of information on the backstory. So for the dance studio, the dreamer did have experience with the dance studio when they were like 3 or 4 for ballet, and then did it again for contemporary dance in their late 20s. Any other like the convenience stores wasn't a memory. The Colonial House wasn't a memory. It was her friend. Diamond was her friend. The strangers, no. The sergeant wasn't familiar. The triples weren't familiar. Triplets weren't familiar. The shop owner wasn't familiar. But Diamond was real and Fletcher was real in the sense of like in her waking life. So just a couple roles. So we got 3 collectives and like 2 personal and then 1 missing part, right? So Fletcher was the missing part, but we have a Diamond and Fletcher. Yeah, I feel like Fletcher, it would be collective, but it's missing. So we got the strangers in the crowd in the beginning in the dance studio, and the team is a collective. The sergeant is a personal shadow. The triplets are collective. The shop owner is a collective, and Diamond is the shadow personal. So and Fletcher is missing. So we got what's some archetypes we have. We got some teammates, supervisor, or authority figure, right? We have competitors. You know, we got the friend or model. Like there's a model, like a that's kind of interesting to think of it as a model. She's modeling. Photos, taking photos, the phone, right? Timing, taking time. All right, I think that's it. I think that's all the things that I've like pulled out. I'd be interested to see if you guys see any other things that are kind of interesting that kind of tie together. So let's get to part 3. Part 3. So this is the final interpretation. Okay, so in a story, we go from the dark part, the shadowy part, which is the unconscious, right? We're in a survival mode. We're like almost like we're training to be warriors, right? We're warriors, we're competing, we're like training, right? And there's the shadow of being inadequate, right? Although I have this like tool in my hand that could be really good and I could win, I'm not really focused on that because I'm focused on food because I'm hungry. And then I can't focus on that because then I'm also triggered by this like inner child, right? Like this funniness of like the humor of like finding the jokes, right? That's like this thing. And then we get to the convenience store of like kind of getting a little bit more awareness of it. Feel like there's a lack mentality there because we have like we're focused on we got the food stamps focusing on, and then we're focusing on like the price tags, even and the missing, right? We start to remember somebody's missing, right? There's a lack there. And then when we get to the second part, it's still dark, and then we're focusing on the picture perfectness. So yeah, so I think like the biggest thing that we can like go from is I think that the first one is telling us that, there's some inner child work. There's some inner child work to do. The inner child work is starving. The inner child is starving. It needs attention. Also, too, I would even say that there's probably maybe some disordered eating or some work around your relationship with food, because it is taking away from like your training, right? Like, and training not meaning like maybe the training is like something that you're doing in your life. Like it could be something that's really good for you, like something that you're good. Like I probably actually has to do with like your power, like not, I mean, because witches have power, right? They have this like dead man's finger is like for potions and spells. And so I would say that like your subconscious is telling you that you have this power, you have these tools, you have this like capability to do really great things. but you have magnifying glassed specific things that aren't really helpful to you. The shadow work is that you are focusing on food or lack of food, like not eating, right? Skipping meals for the like skipping things so that ultimately for a greater purpose, it feels like, right? You're choosing not to eat for your child, but then it's not doing you a service, right? And then it seems like you have your personal shadows, that you have people around you that you can like ally, right? So you have the sergeant who is like an ally, who's like very serious and like a mentor, but at the same time, like understands and is like giving you food and like feeding you. So I would say that is the first part, that um yeah, that you have a power. Maybe you're not consciously aware of it, because like in this thing you have this, I had this finger, and I didn't know that it could have been really great, and then after the thing is over and I get instruction from my mentor, I realized that I had the power that I could have won if I had been paying attention, or if I hadn't been so focused on my hunger, or so focused on like being distracted by my inner child joking or whatever. So I think that that's the first part of the dream. There's some inner child work that definitely needs to be done, because I would say that the inner child work is probably connected to the food. See if there's like a connection from, some healing that your inner child might need around food. Um, and then also too, there's like the two, I think the food issue is connected to toxic masculinity. Um, and that toxic masculinity is, the probably a lot about being first. There's a lot of competition. And if you tie in the last part of this, you get this like perfectionism, right? This personal shadow is of this woman who's beautiful. She's in this perfect lighting. She's in the spotlight. She's got these long brown locks, and like everything is just perfect, that she like, it's almost like she has a spell, right? Her hair is like floating around her. There's like this perfectness about it where it's almost like this eating stuff and this inner child wound and toxic masculinity is also tied to this perfectionism and this like false sense or illusion or mesmerizing thing of, perfectness, right? um and so and then let's bridge them together with the third part, which is the convenience store of food. I feel like this is the conscious mind saying that um like maybe that you believe that you don't have the capacity to maybe you don't have the knowledge or the money to take care of yourself, and that like there's also this like ushering out, like a rushing of like, get you, if you can't like get out of here, like you're embarrassing. Yeah, I feel like that like that's kind of the conscious mind is telling us that like you are aware that there is some um lack financially or maybe in knowledge, right? Because in this part where you're in the middle, you're looking for something, you're looking and seeking. And here's the thing that kind of got me. So the hunger is never satisfied, because the hunger is driven by something that's deeper than just protein, that's deeper than just food, like a protein bar, right? Like we see this hunger, and this could be an internal hunger. This doesn't actually mean hunger either. I think that this is like a deeper level to the shadow work thing. So like that, but there's a hunger that is causing you to chase, right? And what you're chasing, in this example, protein, is not going to satisfy you. this perfectness, right, is not going to satisfy you because you realize it's a vampire. It's sucking you of the life. Like that's what vampire energy does. That archetype of vampire sucking the life out of you. It's this whole hunger is sucking the life out of you, and you can't focus. You can't focus on your power. You couldn't focus on your game. You couldn't hone and train your skills because you're so focused on it, and it's causing this like fogginess. And I would even say that your hunger, that is the inner hunger, is probably causing, so the inner hunger is not a conscious awareness. You're not aware of the inner hunger. You actually are focusing solely on your actual hunger and thinking that food and this kind of thing, this controlling or lack thereof, or like this skipping meals or whatever, which is probably literally causing physical cause with your fuzzy brain, can't remember, not enough memory, that kind of thing. That's what you're focusing your energy on, when really there's a deeper hunger, like the archetype of the vampire, like a deeper hunger to that, where you know, and I think this is what's the deeper hunger is love, right? The hunger for real love, because what's missing? Fletcher. What does Fletcher represent? A crush, a person that you like, right? Fletcher is a person that you have a long time crush, that is a friend too. Like, and to be a friend and have a crush that long, you must love somebody, because a lot of the woman feminine energy has a fear that if you take friends out of the friend zone, you lose them because of toxic masculinity, because most people have to have them in a friend zone. And a lot of times, because of the patriarchy, men can't be friends with women, because their only belief is that women are there for being dating and whatever. So they're like more like objects or whatever. And so that's kind of a stereotypical patriarchic toxic masculine, which I think is part of this whole thing. This is a really deep dream, this going into the deep one. And we're talking really about the shadows. So you have the shadows. Like this is your first scene is all shadows. The second scene is almost all shadows. Like this is the very unconscious, the underbelly, the really raw things that nobody wants to talk about. And so I would really say that like Fletcher, one, the shadow work could be, what does Fletcher represent even deeper than just love? Like what qualities does Fletcher have in real life? What are those that you're missing in your life right now that Fletcher could bring? And not necessarily, I'm not telling you to like in real life date Fletcher and tell him that you love him or whatever, which, go ahead if you want to, but that's what I'm saying. Mostly what we're trying to do is the subconscious is trying to tell you, like, find these parts of yourself and give it to yourself. Feed your own hunger, this inner hunger for love, healing, companionship, whatever Fletcher represents, what traits that he has. Try to use that and kind of think about, like, how can I give that stuff to me? How is that missing in my life? And I think that like is a really beautiful dream about how it kind of all goes together. Again, the collective state is in a competition state of survival currently. You are a warrior, and you've got tools and power at your fingertips. Literally, there's a double meaning, fingertips, like you have it in your hand and it's a finger. But you're being sucked into the cycles of striving for perfectionism, striving for like probably perfectionism through specifically eating or starving, which is not helpful to you because one, it's probably causing a lot of physical problems such as memory fog. Even though it feels noble, like such as giving up meals for a child, But this to me tells that the inner child is starving. There is something, if the inner child is starving, it's not really getting fed. There's an inner hunger that's not being fed, and you're chasing something that's not really conducive to the life that you want. And then, so you do have allies. You have this personal shadow that's an ally. I would write down the traits of Diamond and the Sergeant and see how you personally have those strengths and weaknesses and how you can use them. And when we talk about in strategy work, when we talk about doing the negative traits, we have them, but they should be gifts. So when a negative trait shows up, what is it inviting you to do? So say you are triggered by something, right? You're feeling weak. What is that an invitation to telling you about yourself? Like there's a truth somewhere. It's not that you're weak. It's that maybe the weakness is that you're focusing on the wrong thing and you're not actually feeding yourself, right? The lack of food is causing weakness and lightheadedness. So going how that looks in shadow work is, okay, if the not eating, if I'm not feeding my hunger properly, how do I feed my hunger properly so I can solve the problem of weakness and lightheadedness and forgetfulness and fogginess, right? So that's kind of like how the shadow work like works. Also, there's a talk about this veil, right? There's a glamour, the glamour and the spell that's like kind of cast over it. So to me, this is telling me that like this is unconscious. So if there's a resistance to this, it's unconscious. So like when we have a resistance to something that's unconscious, depending how charged it is, I would definitely like seek some help with that. Like definitely find some help to like work with that, because your dreams are literally saying this. And so, and it's a mystery. So it's like a puzzle. You want to, kind of figure this out and listen to it and work with it. If some of this does resonate and some of it doesn't, always just like leave some of it on the shelf and see if it comes around. Work with people. If you have like parts of it that you would want to work deeper with, reach out. I do have sessions and coaching and stuff like that, as well as courses that you could work through some of this stuff together. But I really think that the ultimate message is like there's a deep hunger within you. You have these tools and this power to do really great things and to train and to, kind of channel this power, but you are feeding the wrong parts. You're focusing on the wrong parts. You're magnifying these parts, such as perfectionism and having things to be perfect. You have to be pretty. You have to be I'm thin, maybe. I don't know if this is, but like that feels like it's very much related to the looking out, right? Because Arnold Schwarzenegger and Gaston were both very focused on vanity. Like they're working on the back. Not that that's wrong, but this to me is just shedding light that the fact that maybe this isn't the right thing for you to be focusing on. And it's not actually feeding your inner child. It's not actually feeding the real hunger within you. And you do have that in you. You have these things within you, but these shadows are causing these blocks. And once those blocks are gone, you can get the things that you want. You can get the things that you need, and you can really be fed. And I think it's really cool to like focus on the fact that the vampire, you are a vampire. So like you are the one that's sucking the life out of yourself, and not feeding the hunger. And I think it's really cool too that Fletcher is part of this, because I think that it really does show that there's a love, a long-term friendship, a love, some information that's quote unquote missing from your life. And that's the key. Figuring out what Fletcher means to you for yourself, not like, don't believe shadow work is not like, oh yeah, Fletcher will fix it. Nothing from the outside will fix it. And we have to go within ourselves. So the Fletcher within you, if that makes sense. The Fletcher within you is missing. Find the Fletcher within you, and you will have such tremendous transformation. And I think too, thinking about the dance studio at ages 3 and 4 and 20, to me, a dance studio, there's a lot of and you have all the participants, which is the strangers of the team. That's a collective shadow of dance studio is eating disorders and that kind of stigma of having a specific body type and eating or not eating in order for it to be perfect, right? And picture perfect. And so, I think hopefully that helps a little bit, and that you can definitely do some shadow work, find the Fletcher within you, do some work with a therapist or a counselor or coach around body stuff, eating, food, relationship with your body. And then, if you do have lightheadedness and fogginess and stuff like that, I just want you to know, that's an invitation for you to eat more protein. The very basic of this is to eat more protein, that very surface level. I'm not making a joke of it, but all the protein mentioned is literally you need more protein for sure. That to me is true. And I think that that's really all that I have to give. I hope this one's I like this one too, because last one I didn't mention any of the feelings, right? So this one I wanted to make sure I mentioned feelings. We got the lightheadedness, the weak, the fogginess, the joking, right? There's, and then you come to the whole thing is frustrated. There's a frustration about not being perfect. And that's what perfectionism really does. It really deters that, tears down the ability to enjoy things as they are. Yeah. So feed your inner child, find the Fletcher within you. And I hope that you enjoyed this episode. So I don't know if you heard this, but we have a monthly meeting that shows up every 13th of the month where you can drop in and we can discuss everything dreams, dream content, dream meetings. How do you know the shadow work, anything like that? We talk about it, and we meet every month, and you can be a part of this group. You can drop in what it is. You can buy 3-month packs, 6-month packs, annual. It's there. And this community loves dreams. And so you're never going to be like, hey, guess what I dreamt last night? And someone's not going to go, oh God, don't tell me again what you dreamt like that. Nope, not here, not in this community. We love dreams and we want to hear all about it. So if you want to, drop in the show notes in the description and be a part of the dream group. Thanks for listening to Dark Moon Chiron. I hope you found what you're looking for and enjoyed the ride. If you'd like to share your dream adventures with the world, please head over to our website, darkmoonchiron.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, there are multiple ways to donate and support us. You can find them in the show notes. All content shared in this podcast is copyrighted by Dark Moon Chiron Incorporated 2022. All rights reserved. None of its content can be used without prior authorization. So until next time, dream big and be wild.